I was not an easy man to love. I know that now. I didn't know it then. Then I thought I was doing everything right. I was providing. I was achieving. I was showing up in all the ways I had been taught that showing up looked like. What I didn't understand was that the people around me were exhausted, not from anything they were doing, from me. I'm 84 years old, and the hardest thing I have ever had to do was not bury my wife. It was not watch my business collapse. It was not face my own mortality standing in a doctor's office at 71 being told my heart was giving out. The hardest thing I ever did was sit across from my son one afternoon in 1981 and truly listen to what he had to say about me. Because what he said was true, every word of it. And the truth, when you have spent decades running from it, does not feel like liberation. It feels like the ground giving way beneath you. I need to tell you something that most people will never admit out loud. The common denominator in every difficult relationship in your life is you. Not entirely, not always. People are complicated, and life is complicated, and sometimes things break for reasons that have nothing to do with you. But if you look honestly at the patterns, the arguments that keep happening the same way, the relationships that keep ending the same way, the moments where people you love seem to pull away without you understanding why, the thread running through all of it is you. That is not an accusation. That is an invitation, because you cannot change what you cannot see, and most people spend their entire lives unable to see themselves clearly. They see their intentions. They see how hard they are trying. They see the effort they are putting in. What they cannot see is the impact, and impact is all that matters. In 1981, I was 55 years old. Eleanor and I had been married for 28 years. My son Daniel was 26. My daughter Catherine was 23. By every external measure, I had succeeded as a father. My children were educated. They had opportunities I never had. They were adults who could take care of themselves. I thought that was the goal. I thought that was what I had been working toward. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel came to the house. He asked Eleanor to give us some time alone. She left without looking at me. That should have told me something. Daniel sat down across from me at the kitchen table. He was calm, unnervingly calm, the kind of calm that takes a long time to prepare. And he said, "Dad, I need to tell you some things, and I need you to not defend yourself while I say them. Can you do that?" I said yes. I thought I meant it. Daniel spoke for 40 minutes. He told me what it was like to grow up in our house. He told me what it felt like to bring home a report card that was not perfect and watch my face. He told me what it was like to play a sport and feel my disappointment from the sideline when he made a mistake, even when I said nothing, even when I thought I was hiding it. He told me that his entire childhood he felt like he was auditioning, that no matter what he did, he was always one mistake away from losing something he could never quite name. He told me that he loved me, and that loving me had been one of the most tiring things he had ever done. I sat across from my son and I listened. and everything inside me wanted to defend myself, to explain, to tell him all the sacrifices I had made, all the things I had given up, all the ways I had shown up that he wasn't seeing or wasn't crediting. I kept my mouth shut. For the first time in 55 years, I kept my mouth shut, and I just listened. And when he finished, I said, "Daniel, you're right. I'm sorry." That was the hardest sentence I have ever spoken, not because I didn't mean it, but because meaning it required me to see myself in a way I had been refusing to see myself for decades. It required me to understand that good intentions are not enough, that working hard is not enough, that providing is not enough, that love is not just what you feel, it is what the other person experiences. And if the other person is not experiencing it, then no matter how much you feel it, you have failed to deliver it. I had been feeling love for my family my entire life. I had not been delivering it. After Daniel left that Sunday, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Eleanor came back in. She sat across from me. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, "He's been needing to say that for a long time." I asked her, "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at me with the patience of a woman who had spent 28 years choosing her battles carefully, and she said, "Arthur, I've been telling you for 28 years. You just weren't listening." That was the moment, not Daniel's 40 minutes, not the words themselves, but Eleanor looking at me across the kitchen table with 28 years of quiet in her eyes and telling me that she had been speaking and I had not been hearing. I had been so certain I was a good husband, so certain I was a good father, so certain that because my intentions were right, my impact must be right too. I was wrong. And the wrongness had been sitting in my kitchen for 28 years, waiting for me to notice it. Here is what I want you to understand about being the problem. Being the problem does not make you a bad person. It makes you a person with blind spots, and every single one of us has them. The question is not whether you have them. The question is whether you are willing to look. Most people are not. Most people would rather protect the image they have of themselves than do the uncomfortable work of seeing themselves as others see them. They would rather be right than be close. They would rather defend than understand. And they spend their whole lives wondering why they feel alone in rooms full of people who love them. I spent the last 29 years of my marriage differently than I spent the first 28. Not perfectly. I still made mistakes. I still had moments where the old Arthur showed up and said exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. But I listened more. I defended less. I asked questions I had never thought to ask before. I said I'm sorry in ways that didn't come with an explanation attached. And Eleanor gave me those 29 years. She didn't have to. After 28 years, she had every reason to be done, but she stayed. And those 29 years were the best of my life, not because they were easier, because they were real. So here is what I want you to do. The first thing, think of the person in your life who is hardest to be around, the one who frustrates you most, the one whose behavior you find most difficult to understand or accept. Now ask yourself honestly, Is there any possibility that what frustrates you in them is something that exists in you too? Not identically, but in some form. Most of the time, the answer is yes. The things that bother us most in others are very often the things we cannot face in ourselves. The second thing, ask someone who loves you to tell you one thing you do that makes it harder to be close to you, not to criticize, to help you see a blind spot. And when they tell you, don't defend yourself, don't explain, don't minimize, just listen. The way I should have listened for 28 years before my son sat me down at a kitchen table and made me hear it. The third thing, understand that changing is not weakness. It is the hardest and most courageous thing a person can do. It is much easier to stay the same and blame the world than it is to look in the mirror and decide to become someone different. The people who change are not the ones who had it easiest. They are the ones who loved something more than they loved being right. Daniel and I had 23 years after that Sunday afternoon before I got too old to travel. 23 years of conversations I would never have had if he hadn't sat down across from me with 40 minutes of truth. He is the person I am most proud of in my life, not because of what he achieved, because of the courage it took for a 26-year-old man to sit across from his father and tell him the truth. He gave me the chance to be a better father, a better husband, a better man, and I almost missed it because I was too busy defending the version of myself I had decided to believe in. Don't make that mistake. The hardest words I ever said were, "You're right. I'm sorry." They were also the most important. Say them before someone has to sit you down and make you